And we are back, coming here with, if I'm being honest with you, Light, probably the... Alright, we have Light on the desk now. I have priorities somewhere. Anyway, what was I saying? What I think was the match that, honestly, I was waiting for the longest time. I mean, we have another very, very, very hype match coming up after this one. It has been such an intense sort of rivalry. Well, maybe not that intense, but at least in NA Ladder Heroes, it's been very intense between those players coming out later on. But here, if we're looking at the ZvZ we've got here, like EnDerr versus JimRising, the man with the most amazing name against the man with the other most amazing name.
It's honestly, I can't wait. Like, as you said, for both remaining matches that are coming up, like the Latin American scene and the Southeast Asian scene are something that we really kind of formed a bond with. Like over 2020, like we've gotten really close with like players and other community members from both scenes, and yeah, we're kind of that bridge at the moment, and we'll see if that bridge holds. Yeah, across the bridge across the Pacific, you know.
We are literally the LA highway the LA Tokyo highway.
Exactly. And I don't know what to expect, because these guys, other than on ladder, like they don't really play against each other at all in tournaments. I wouldn't be surprised if they just haven't played against each other, period. And yeah, like how does a player like EnDerr, who most recently is the DreamHack Winter Champion for our region, compared to someone like JimRising, you know, someone who's one of the best Zergs in the Latin American region?
I guess we're about to find out.
Also, Kura, you're unmuted? Question mark?
I was hoping we were having a TriCast.
Yeah, I was just making sure. I don't know what was happening there, but yeah, I can't wait for this. I can't wait for the next matchup, which includes Miyamike and Chem as well. And in general, I love the idea of hosting more of these more show matches along these lines. You know, like trying to pit against each other players from our region and from Latin America as well. Because again, it's just something that we don't really see.
That really is not, and especially EnDerr as well. Seal brought it up, and it's something I didn't even realize. But Seal brought it up that we actually don't really get to see EnDerr much either, just in general.
Period. Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
And so we're throwing him off the deep end, putting him up against El Pollo Loco himself.
Yeah. It is a bit of a shame that EnDerr, he's a player who comes out for DreamHack and not much else. He plays in like regional stuff like PSL, like the Filipino Star League. But that's kind of it. So we'll see how he looks outside of DreamHack. We'll see if he's been able to maintain his form as well, because it has been a couple of almost 2 months since DreamHack Winter.
Has it?
It's been a while. It's been a while now.
It's been a certain number of time, and speaking of a certain number of time, he stopped playing, so yeah, you always gotta shut up Paynon though. Here in the top right hand corner map, spawning all the way in the top right hand corner of Jagannatha LE, we have the red Protoss player coming down from those Philippines, representing Liab Esports. We have El Conquistador. He is Caviar Napoleon Maquises Acamparo EnDerr.
And spawning in the bottom left-hand corner of Jagannatha LE, we have El Mexicano representing Latin America, the blue Zerg player. Also representing Team Tibbers Esports, it is Jaime Arturo Duran Silencio, JimRising.
It just flows off the tongue so well.
It does. It's beautiful. Oh, God.
Man. But it is not just names. That was the reason why we wanted to pit these two players against one another. Now, forgive me if I'm wrong, Light. I'm more of a casual follower when it comes to Latin America. But I remember JimRising as being one of the more aggressive Zerg players, and to be fair, Latin American Zerg players are pretty aggressive. I mean, you know, look at Cham, look at Ryu, but JimRising takes it to another level, especially with especially when it comes to mutas and whatnot. EnDerr, he's also among the most aggressive Zerg players in Southeast Asia.
Yeah, I mean, EnDerr, he's part of the Bermuda Triangle, right? Like, he's part of the trifecta, you know, Mio Micah, EnDerr, and Go-Go Joey. What was it? Looks like there was a bit of a pause there.
F11.
But...
Rising is saying, no, you're gonna 12 fool me.
But, of course...
Game Heart. That's what they were talking about. I checked the chat logs. Sorry.
God damn it. It's a bit unfortunate. But yeah, JimRising, like, he's been known for his muta play, but other than that, like, he's been pretty aggressive, even, like, despite that, right? He is known to go for roaches and things of that nature, so we'll see how their styles clash.
That's what we're definitely going to be hoping for. Now, JimRising did say that he knew that EnDerr was going to try to 12 fool him. And kind of, preparing accordingly, shall we say? Very quick Banal Nest coming out of JimRising. More of a safety nest, really.
Yeah, so far from Jim, like, everything seems pretty standard. Like, he didn't go for an early pull, he went for a hatch first. You know, we see a Bailing Nest as well, Link Speed. Meanwhile, EnDerr, even though he did go for a pull first, like, he's attempting to catch up in drones, and he's getting his third hatchery.
And Jim's gonna see it! This is... definitely peak EnDerr. He'll build one way and then he'll go into another.
Well, yeah, like, he's getting a third hatchery, but again, that doesn't signify that he's looking to go macro, right? Like, that could just be for larva, as we see he's just flooding lings.
Hashtag just EnDerr things. Hasn't been too successful so far. JimRising doing a very good job of the Sim City there. Keeping them queens on the choke point.
Yeah,
and
I would also
doesn't look like EnDerr's gonna break him.
Yeah. I mean, EnDerr, he backs off, like, he's forced to drone up as well. For the most part, like, the drone count is pretty similar between the two, except, of course, EnDerr, he does have that third base already up and running, but now Jim, he's going to be heading across the map, and it's important to know that he does have his Bailing Nest.
Oh, but so does EnDerr. Bailings do finish up. This is, I guess, what I was expecting, honestly, Light. Out of these two players, Lingbane Wars up the wazoo.
Yeah, exactly. And it looks like a lot of these Bailings are going to be cancelled on the side of Jim, but he's still got plenty more.
Ooh, he has to be careful with his Zerglings. He already takes some very unfortunate connections here. His Bailings, though, they are definitely still up and running. A lot of drones are starting to go down, though.
Yeah, exactly. The Lings, they get into... Yeah, they get into the natural. Nice Bailing connections on both ends, but the important part is that EnDerr, he's just losing so many workers.
17 of them. He's left with 13 against JimRising's 30. And sure, EnDerr does have that third base, so he does have more larva, but it's going to take a lot more than that to, one, remake the drone count, and two, defend JimRising's aggression. He is not stopping.
Yeah, and he doesn't need to, right? Like, he's ahead in workers. Sure, he's down when it comes to, like, the production, but again, that doesn't really matter too much here, as the Lings are kind of unimpeded. Like, they're killing more workers here at the third.
Like, so Bailing's really unable to find a connection coming down.
Yeah, and, like, the Bailings, there just aren't enough of them. There were two here at the natural, but there was nothing to really cover the third. No!
Oh, we do get a connection there. Jim does anyway. And with that, there's nothing really left to defend. There are two Banelings, but they're slowlings. They're not going to be able to, get those connections that they want. That was a start, but Jim has split up his army very nicely.
Yeah, exactly. And again, the thing is that Jim has been the aggressor this entire game so far, and EnDerr just hasn't really been able to go across the map. Like, he's just stuck at home defending, and even then, like, he's just been slipping up. He even just targeted down a creep tumor.
Ay. Dios mío. No, Mia plays later.
Mia does play later, but EnDerr, he has to try and do something here. He has to try and deal some kind of damage to the economy of EnDerr. The problem is that EnDerr, he's gotten to the point where now finally roaches are coming out at home.
Indeed, there are. EnDerr is doing quite a bit of pressure here on the other side of the map, able to get a really long delay on that third base. As you said, the roaches are already out. EnDerr is aware of this, but I mean, what is the right call to make here? I mean, you want to get a lot of Zerglings out, right, to try to surround the roaches, but EnDerr cannot really make that choice.
Yeah, that's the problem. Like, EnDerr, he has to do what he can to keep JimRising across the map while he drones up. This entire time, EnDerr has been making nothing but drones. The problem is that at a certain point, Jim, he's finishing up +1 range. Like, he's gonna feel confident enough to push out with his roaches, and EnDerr, I don't know if he's gonna have enough to defend against it.
I'm looking at the army supply right now, Light, and I am skeptical.
Yeah,
now catching up in the worker supply. It's not looking too good for El Conquistadora.
Definitely. Like, this is one of the things about a mirror matchup, right? Like, EnDerr has just lost so many workers this game. If we look at the units lost, he's lost 31 drones.
Ooh. Not sure what that was on the... Alright, GG is called. JimRising going to be taking game #1. And honestly, like, that game... Maybe aside from some mutas, it went about as I would have honestly expected the game from EnDerr versus Mio-Micah. Just EnDerr versus Mio-Micah? No, EnDerr versus JimRising. I'm so used to the other two Zerg players playing. Oh no, EnDerr versus JimRising, just non-stop. Everybody wants Lings on the other side of the map. The only thing that would have made it more up to my expectations, again, was Muta switch from either of these players, but apart from that...
Yeah, like, neither player really had the opportunity to go there, or at least EnDerr didn't, right? Like, he was on the back foot for the majority of the game, even though he was the player who opened up with a faster pool as well, which was quite surprising. So yeah, we'll see if this is like a bit of a tell for how this series is gonna go. Is EnDerr gonna calm down a little bit and open up a little bit more standard, or is he just gonna keep going for those early pools? Again, EnDerr, he's like a really interesting player because he has his own style that's like separate from even the other players in Southeast Asia.
Oh, without a doubt. Like, we call him part of the Muta triangle, that of course being the the three very non-standard, shall we say, Zerg players. It's Mio-Micah in Vietnam, EnDerr in the Philippines, and Gogo Joey in Hong Kong, making up that little three-pointed... I feel like I don't want to say triangle again, because that's just repetitious. It was that three-pointed shape, if you will. A 2D pyramid. Yeah, a 2D pyramid. And I feel like Mio-Micah obviously is the elephant in the room there, but EnDerr is... How should I describe it? EnDerr is the type of player where if you sort of look at it from a distance, it seems standard, right? But when you're actually in front of it, you notice all of the different... all of the ways he diverts from what you could consider standard. Yeah,
it's also one of those things where, like, for me anyway, like, I don't know if there's bias, but like, it's hard for me to conceptualize, but I have to accept the fact that EnDerr is like a champion. Like, he's straight up
a champion.
Yeah, he was our representative for DreamHack Winter. Like, it's something that no one really expected going into it. Like, no one really had their eyes on him to be the one, right? Like, to take out... Yeah, to take out players like Risky and Seether and Probe and become that champion. It's like, wow, okay, like he comes out swinging hard.
And then they put him up against Cyril and, if I'm not wrong, Innovation.
Yeah.
No, I think it was Cyril and Stats, if I'm not mistaken.
For sure.
That said, JimRising. He ain't a slouch, as he has demonstrated for us in game #1. He has a reputation of being more of a streamer, more of a content creator, but there's a reason why he is one of the most feared players whenever we see him in one of these weekly events, like, not Last Spira, like, Battle of the Americas, like, Sentimento Latino, that's the one.
There we go.
And speaking of going, we are going to be going to Lightshade LE over here in the bottom right-hand corner map, spawning all the way in the bottom right-hand corner the Red Zerg player coming down from Los Philippines. He is the DreamHack Winter representative from Southeast Asia / Oceania. He is representing Liab Esports. Caviar Napoleon Maquises Acamparo EnDerr.
And spawning.
God damn it.
They did. Spawning in the top left-hand corner. Oh my god. This time, wait, hold on.
Yeah, you're messed up because of the colors, aren't you? You're messed up because of the colors, aren't you? God.
Well, for me, the camera started in the bottom right. So, okay.
Okay, go on.
Okay. We have spawning in the bottom right, the red Zerg player, the Mexican Zerg player representing Timbers Esports. It is, of course, oh god, I don't have it off my memory. Jaime Arturo Duran Silencio, JimRising.
It also started in the bottom right for me. Like,
okay.
it's just going off of the previous game. I'm so used to whatchamacallit rules where, you know, colors are consistent and whatnot.
God damn.
They swapped their colors around. I have to assume that they did it on purpose.
Okay. We're here, we're good. And if I'm not wrong, I'm pretty sure EnDerr once again did the same opening he did last time. It wasn't a 12 pool or anything crazy like that. It was just a pool first. But it does seem that he does favor going for a much faster link speed.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much to be expected from him. If you have to base it off of any previous ZvZs coming down, JimRising, I mean, he's got to feel more prepared for it this time. I mean, he dealt with it really well in game number 1. This should be similar story.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he went for a pretty standard timing for all of his production buildings. He's already got his lings out. It's like he just pushes the lings away. And again, to be fair, like, EnDerr wasn't looking to deal too much damage with this. Like, again, the advantage that he will have is when speed kicks in.
It will. But he's already backing away pretty far away from JimRising's side of the map. He's continuing to build up the lings, though. Guess just worried about a potential counterattack from Jim?
I think he just wants to go, mate. I mean, link speed is about to finish. Bailiness is on the way as well, and as you were pointing out, EnDerr just hasn't really been investing too much into drones, so he's looking to be active with these links, but Jim is already working on a wall.
Indeed, he is. Oof. And just like that, nice and solid. Queen's really filling it up. Does get a creep tumor, at the very least.
Yeah,
gets the queens.
He has to be careful, but EnDerr, he confirms the wall. He sees the opening of Jim, and we'll see what like decisions he makes from here. I'd be surprised if he makes more lings. Like, again, with that full wall, it's gonna be really difficult to break. Oh, he gets in.
Unless he slips in, and he doesn't get completely into the other side of the wall, but he does manage to slip in, gets a very nice surface area on some of these queens. It's something for his troubles, and oh, interesting. Okay, so JimRising is doing what he did in game number 1, focusing on roaches, getting his +1 range. Thing is, so is EnDerr.
Yeah, and the bit of a difference here, I mean, Jim, we know him for going for something like fast mutas. It doesn't seem like that's the case, but Jim is going for a much faster lair.
Interesting. Alright, well, we've had the Lingbane Wars light in game number 1. Roach Wars are just a way to round off a ZvZ, I think. Eventually, we're going to see Hydra Lurker versus Hydra Lurker, Muta versus Muta.
We'll get there eventually in this series. Oh boy. But yeah, like with this lair, we'll see what Jim has in store for us. If it's going to be just a straight up Roach speed push, or if he decides to be a little bit more fancy and throw in a Nidus or something of that nature. I mean, EnDerr's already getting ready for it. Like, his lings are on patrol in his main.
Oh, you're mentioning Nidus Light.
Oh, there it is. Honestly, I just said it to say it. I didn't think he was actually going to do it.
Well, who needs link speed if you can just instantly get all of your roaches on the other side of the map? I do like that EnDerr is keeping a couple of his links patrolled around his main base. But I feel like there are a couple of cracks here for EnDerr that JimRising can pretty easily exploit.
Yeah, we'll see. Like Jim, the only vision he has across the map is that one Overlord outside the main base of EnDerr. Like that's pretty much it. So, and there we go. Immediately, EnDerr spots it.
Just like so. Oh, but look at this light. There is so much missing creep here for EnDerr.
Yeah, and it takes so long for the army to get there.
Now, we'll be able to deal with this Nidus, but not before a couple of roaches come out. The second Nidus popping out, though, that is what really is going to be the troublemaker here for EnDerr. Even pulling the boys to try to help. He does have a better position on his roaches. Gotta give him that.
Yeah, we do, but EnDerr's gonna be kicking himself, right? Like, he had Lings on patrol. Like, he knew that this was a possibility. He was ready for it. But as you said, the creep wasn't connecting the main base to the natural. Like, it just took way too long for the roaches to get there.
That said, he didn't really take too much economic damage. Took a couple of, maybe some lost mining time, but he's still in a pretty stable position. But is stable really going to be enough? JimRising is doing JimRising things, like, I love to see it.
Oh my god, here it is, mate. We have that Muta transition on the way for Jim. Jim, like, this is like he's getting into his element, you know? This is what he's known for. This is what he wants to get into.
Now, I have to wonder, how much has EnDerr practiced against Demi? That's
the question.
Then this Muta switch won't be as effective as it otherwise would be. But we'll see. Demi, of course, being another player very much known for going into a Muta switch.
Yeah, like Demi, in that way, he's similar to Jim. I would say that in general, Jim is a bit more aggressive.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but when it comes
Demi
to the Mutas,
Demi is a bit more the passive kind of Muta player. Well, not when it comes to his Mutas, but when it comes to getting his Mutas.
Yeah. His overall general play style. But we'll see. Okay, so EnDerr, he is slipping into the main base with his Overseer. Unfortunately, there's no energy here for a Changeling, so I don't know if it's going to be able to survive long enough to spot. Oh, he's actually already seen Spire.
Spotted, yeah, he had another Changeling running around. And immediately we see the Hydralisk Den being thrown down. No spores though. EnDerr he likes to live on the edge. That's what you can say about him.
Oh my god, but the Mutas don't even matter. EnDerr, he's already taking an unfavorable engagement against the roaches of JimRising. Like, I mean, he lost half his roaches because he went in with only half of his army.
He did. I thought he was going to get another surround on top of that, but then JimRising ran away.
Yeah, JimRising is kiting away. Now the Mutas are joining the fray, and they're going to be able to clean up all these roaches. They have to back off the Hydras. They aren't ready yet.
No, they are not. Actually getting Hydra Speed, prioritizing Hydra Seed instead of Grew Spines. Now, he is winning the ground battle, and he did make a heck of a lot of... Oh, yes! The Zerglings are sneaking into the wall light!
Oh my god, there's a massive link run by into the main base of JimRising. At the same time, JimRising is starting to overpower the army. No, actually, JimRising gets pushed away at the third of EnDerr. Yeah,
Queen's too good, Spore's too good. And yeah, both of them take 2 drones each.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, Jim did lose his injecting Queen in the main base, which is a nice pickoff, and EnDerr was able to hold at the third base, so far it's kind of even. I say kind of even. Jim did save the majority of his Mutas. I spoke too soon.
Exactly. EnDerr really just looking to buy time for these Hydras to come out, and now it's Roach Hydra versus Muta Roach Light. I feel like one of them is more favored against the other.
Yeah, like Mutas, they aren't ideal in a head-on engagement, right? Against Hydralisks. Like, they're typically your harassing units. So because of that, Jim is most likely just gonna switch into pure Roach Ravager. And we'll see how this turns out. We'll see if EnDerr decides to throw down a Lurker Den anytime soon.
I mean, that's definitely what you want against Roach Hydra. JimRising already transitioning go into his +2 range. EnDerr already has it. They're gonna be looking for the infestation pit pretty soon. You can afford it. I want to point out, like, both of these players have been on 3 bases the entire time.
Yeah, it's taken a while for them to expand. JimRising is finally taking his 4th base. I will say that JimRising, because of the small amount of mutas that he has out on the map, like he still has control, and it is making it difficult for EnDerr to expand.
And he is making absolute use of that control. Oh, I guess he was trying to pull the army back, but EnDerr not baited.
Yeah, these mutas are just trying to harass as best they can, but EnDerr, we do see just pushing straight into creep.
Yep, the army is split, which could have been good if he decided to go for the surround. But EnDerr, I guess his attention was split elsewhere.
Yeah, already EnDerr losing a hefty amount of Hydras, and again, Hydras are so expensive as well.
Really good battles for Jim as well. Is starting to push down the ramp though. But it looks like JimRising has managed to buy himself enough time to get that army that he needs. Just about what is ideal to counter Roach Hydra.
Yeah, honestly, it just feels like JimRising keeps out-positioning EnDerr. Like, at every point in the turn,
Absolutely.
like, he rotates north, he takes out the entire, like, hatchery, and now he's just going toe-to-toe with the main army.
Man, this is positional Zerg at its best. JimRising is really showing off the how to kite, I guess is the right term. What's the term I'm thinking of here, Light? How to
Stutter step, how to
stutter step, how to kite, how to make sure you get your roaches in just the right position to maximize that damage.
Yeah, exactly. Like, Jim didn't even lose everything. He just goes for, like, this big run by, essentially. Like, he snipes a hatchery, takes out a big chunk of roaches and hydras. He backs off, and he's perfectly fine at home.
Much more than fine, I will say. Started working on that 4th base. His army supply, as you said, just hasn't really been dented here. EnDerr losing a lot more. Oh! Move command up the ramp. Not ideal.
Yeah, and now, Jim, we can see the disparity in the supplies is getting larger and larger. He's getting on top of the army. All these Ravagers are going to be going down.
Yeah, there's some pretty good battles, but nowhere near enough. GG's call. JimRising going up to match point.
Wow. Wow.
What? Yeah. Man. I think that's just gonna be our reactions here. This wow
Yeah.
and man.
Like, that game, go on.
No, I really like how you described it, where it really does feel like JimRising has figured out how to just outposition EnDerr every single time.
Mm-hmm.
It's what am I thinking of here, like? It was something. It was in like an Asterix comic, if I'm not wrong. Something about Gaul.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it felt like EnDerr had really good responses to what Jim was going for. Like, overall, like, the way EnDerr was able to slip in with his Lings, the way he was able to defend against the mutas with his Hydras, even earlier on when he was getting ready for the Nidus as well. Like, it feels like the responses are there for EnDerr, but I do have to critique his unit control. Like, there were a couple of times, there were a decent amount of times where, like, it felt like he had his entire army on like a hotkey, and
Like an all army move, yeah.
Yeah, it felt like all army moves, and a lot of the time, chunks of his army would just be caught out of position, and that's expensive. Like, that adds up, right? Like, that's
As we see,
as we saw.
And now, before we go into this next match, Light, I have a request.
Mm-hmm.
Shall we swap around the intros?
Yeah.
I haven't been able to go full Duran Silencio.
Do Jaime. Give it to Jaime, mate. Do
Let's
it.
frickin' go! Alright, I'm keeping my eye on the colors now. JimRising is red, EnDerr is blue. They didn't swap around again. Okay, they're keeping it. They're keeping it. Right?
That they are. They are.
Right.
We'll see. We'll find out when we get in game. But Yeah, honestly, Jim has been really impressing me this game, and honestly, I know he has a lot to prove. Earlier today, he played in Copa Hyperion, and I would say
It
he
was on the semis, right?
underperformed. Yeah, he got knocked out in the semis, and we honestly we all expected him to go all the way to the finals, and it didn't look good there, and I know he was a bit upset about it, but here he is looking strong already in this series.
Absolutely, here in the studio, and look at how this all lines up. We have here on Xmas Pillars of Gold, holding up the rest of the Xmas maps. JimRising, he can't focus, but here he is in the top right-hand corner map, starting all the way in the top right-hand corner. The Red Zug player coming down all the way from Mexico.
The
Really
lights.
appreciating the map. Really appreciating the map here. He is going to be representing Macaco as well as Timbers Esports. He is the assassin himself, El Pollo Loco, Jaime Arturo Duran Silencio. We have JimRising.
I love it. I love the way that they're exploring the map. It's sporting in the bottom left-hand corner of Pillars of Gold LE. We have the Filipino Zerg player, the Oceanic / Rest of Asia EPT Winter Champion. He is, oh my god, as I quickly check, he is Caviar Napoleon Marquises Acampado EnDerr.
Man, shout out to Maras, which actually I kind of realized this halfway around. I feel like when we kind of asked her to add these decorations and whatnot to sort of remake the maps, I feel like it would have been harder a season ago, because now it feels like half of the maps are maps that she already made.
Yeah, I was
Is what I mean.
Yeah, I was actually in a call with Darking and Vortex before I joined the cast, and they're like, "Who made this?" I'm like, "Maras," and they're like, "Who's that?" And I'm like, "Well, she made Death Aura, Romanticide,
Yeah.
and
Jagannatha, if I'm not... No, Jagannatha was someone else.
yeah. There's a third, but she made 3 in this map pool. It's like, oh wow, like that's impressive.
If there's any sort of purple or vibrant neon or something like that, it's a pretty good indication it was made by Maras.
Pretty much. Shout out to Maras for making these skins. We did commission her to create the Xmas versions of all these maps, and honestly, I love how they've turned out. They're amazing.
They really are. And our players have been getting it as well. I mean, you were mentioning JimRising. You know, he was kind of feeling a little bit down on himself a little bit earlier on. I'm just really glad both of our players here are having a really good, having a nice good time. Watching that snowfall, that's pretty rare, both in the Philippines and in Mexico.
Yeah, I don't think it's ever
in those 2 places. Yeah,
exactly. Especially in the Philippines, I don't think it's ever snowed there.
Maybe like 3.2 million years ago.
Maybe. Oh boy. But already, this time we do have them investing a little bit in their lings. You know, they're poking and prodding EnDerr with lings across the map, but Jim does have his wall up and ready.
He's wise to it. He knows the ways of the EnDerr. And I guess that's another thing, isn't it, about EnDerr? Sure, he was the EPT champion for DreamHack winner for Southeast Asia. That also means he was on focus a lot more. You know, he was in front of a camera. Jim has definitely had the time to look at his play. To be fair, Jim also plays in a lot of weekly events too.
Oh yeah, definitely. So EnDerr, like, he definitely had an opportunity to study his opponents, but again, when it comes to ZvZ, like, we've seen Jim whip out so many different things, right? Like, he can, in various different ways, he can get up to that Spire tech. We've seen him go for Niduses, and speaking of Niduses, once again, we have a quite early lair coming out here from Jim.
Oh, okay, it's 3 gas this time. So it could just be a more standard sort of a roach push across the map, especially on Pillars of Gold. You want to be making use of the ramps as much as you can, trying to bait your opponent to, try to get into one of those areas where you've already set up your surround.
Oh yeah, we'll see as the layer is about to finish up. Jim does have an Overlord situated over in the bottom right-hand corner of the map, so if you wanted to go for a Nidus, there is maybe an opportunity there outside the third base. As I'm currently waiting to see if he goes for that or if he just goes for Roach speed.
There's Galile.
There we go.
So I guess it is more map dependent for JimRising.
Yeah. Oh, he's even working on the highway a little bit.
Taking a page out of Mio Micah. He's been thinking, alright, who are the Zerg players who have beaten EnDerr? Mio Micah, obviously. He just consulted the archives. This is why he's El Asesinado. Is that the correct translation?
Yeah, it works. El Asesino.
Hey. It's gonna make you silencio.
Exactly. As you do see, EnDerr is actually the one pushing across the map with all of his roaches. Yeah, really bold, to be honest. Like, he has no lair whatsoever.
Huh. Well, he is getting a lot of lings to try to compensate for that. We'll provide a nice little buffer, or even just as reinforcements to catch out any stragglers. I'm
just honestly surprised he's going for this, because it's not like Jim was looking to expand. Jim is on 2 bases. Like, you don't typically try to push off a ramp and break that, but that's exactly what EnDerr's going for.
And then he backs away, and then he tries his luck again, and then he backs away. Some pretty good corrosive biles.
Oh god, you know what? Roach Speed just finished up as well, so that means JimRising can just chase this down.
Absolutely, shouldn't be too much of a difficulty for him. His upgrades are also way better at the moment. I do like that EnDerr is just poking around. Oh, like actually kind of trapping JimRising, where his speed will not make too much of a difference.
He is
an advantage, though. That it might.
Yeah, nice biles. They do take out the roach one, so no more roaches in production for Jim. Even denies +2.
Beautifully done here by EnDerr. He has to be so careful now, though, as roach speed was finished up. But JimRising eating a couple of biles to the face.
Oh, nice biles, but in the end, it looks like JimRising should be able to hold on. Oh, we do see EnDerr is rallying across the map with lings. Oh, but he's backing off.
He is, but now he's backing away. Should be feeling pretty satisfied with the damage he's been able to do. But now, what is the follow-up from EnDerr is going to be the big question.
Yeah, honestly, I'm worried for him. I kind of wish he stuck around to try and deny the third base, because EnDerr, even though he's been up on bases, like he's been down on workers, he still doesn't have +1. +2 was immediately remade for Jim, and EnDerr, he still doesn't even have roach speed.
He's catching up on all of the other tech that he really needs, and that's going to be taking quite a while now. EnDerr, to his credit, is sending run-bys around. He's trying to keep JimRising back. Make sure his economic advantage doesn't throw away his economic advantage. That's what I meant.
Yeah, definitely. Like, he's been doing a really good job. I mean, he sniped a queen earlier as well that was over at the third base location. So, yeah, and I mean, JimRising, I was going to say that JimRising isn't feeling confident enough. So, like, EnDerr has this time to catch up. Now they're equal on upgrades. They're going to be equal on roach speed upgrades as well. But JimRising isn't going to be giving him that time. He's pushing across the map.
Indeed, he is, with all of his upgrades, pushing down this ramp. EnDerr's in a better position at the moment, but he needs to not be baited.
Yeah, he has to be so careful here, especially because +2 is about to finish up.
Indeed, it is. Now, JimRising is supply cap, though, and EnDerr, he can continue to produce more and more roaches, especially with that vendor's advantage. May be able to just push this back, but we'll see. This Overlord still has not gone down.
What?
It lives, and it's gonna live. No, I jinxed it.
Finally goes down. Both players are actually heavily supply blocked. We just see JimRising making 5 overlords, EnDerr making 2.
No, those biles.
Oh, the biles do land. Biles landing on both sides.
Jesus Cristo. I think EnDerr did not realize what the upgrades situation was looking like for Jim. Position is favoring him at the moment, but now JimRising once again gonna be out positioning EnDerr.
Exactly,
really
EnDerr just
of his space.
Yeah, EnDerr just took way too many biles. I'm so surprised he decided to pounce on that because he should have clicked and he should have known EnDerr is down an upgrade. Like, JimRising +2 was done this entire time and he's just taking full advantage of that.
Well, you know, EnDerr, he smells blood in that water. He wants to pounce. And, I mean, if it's a consolation, he will be able to clean this up and survive and, you know, keep his bases alive.
Yeah.
They've only traded army supply so far, but not sure if that's going to be good enough for EnDerr.
Yeah, like,
I'm
honestly,
sure he's going to be satisfied with that.
Yeah, EnDerr did a really good job at cleaning this up. He just has to be careful because, again, he hasn't started +2. Like, he's still at that upgrade disadvantage, and that's not changing. Like, he's not doing anything about it.
That said, his army supply is looking fantastic, and when it comes to Roach v. Roach, sometimes more numbers is absolutely what you want instead of more upgrades. All comes down to positioning, though, and JimRising, he's showing off why he's a position master.
Man, his dancing skills are coming into play right now. He's all over the place, all over EnDerr, and he just immediately cleans up the army that EnDerr had across the map. Suddenly, the supply advantage goes in favor of JimRising.
And you thought him doing the mating call was just him being silly. It was practice. It was practice for all of the starter step, and he needs to get right behind EnDerr's lines.
Yeah, and it's working. It's working on me at least. Like, damn, like what Jim's been able to do here. He's just, oh god, he's just been able to outmaneuver EnDerr time after time. Finally, EnDerr is starting +2, but is it too late? JimRising, he's getting ready to lay siege on the third.
Oh, it's looking far, far too late for me, Light. Unless EnDerr takes advantage of positioning.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, EnDerr, he's getting ready for that massive concave, and now he's pushing in, but he doesn't have any Ravagers.
No, he really does not. And you can see what a difference it really makes here for JimRising. He is just disrupting every single, I don't want to say position here, Light. Every single place that these roaches are at, forcing him to back away, and every time he does, man, JimRising's roaches, they're ready to fill in those blanks. They're ready to just get behind those lines, get us around on small amounts of roaches, and then just bring it all the way home.
Yeah, exactly. Like every single time, all these biles, they're either landing or forcing his opponent to move and just take more and more auto attacks. As all this is happening, the third is incredibly low as well for EnDerr, like so close, or so it's so tempting to be biled down by Jim.
Doesn't have to transfuse this either.
He doesn't. He doesn't have any queens. He's got injecting queens, and that's it.
But he is dodging biles with his overlords.
He is. The overlords are buying as much time as they can in the center of the map, but in the end, once again, you know, EnDerr, he is supply blocked this entire game. I was just quickly looking at the overlords lost, because they've both been on top of killing and denying their overlords.
Man, that's gotta be a record. For overlords that were killed by biles. Not even Mutalisks coming in from either of these players. Alright, +2 has finished up for EnDerr. Gonna be seeing some more even fights going down, but that's exactly what JimRising wants. He wants to make sure that EnDerr is kept back here, trying to take those even fights. Meanwhile, he's expanding, 4th base finishing up.
Yeah, and that's the huge part, right? Like EnDerr, he's been stuck on 3 bases for so long. To be fair, as you said, the upgrades are done.
Ooh, and it could go either player's way right now. Not if EnDerr tries to move up that ramp.
Every single time, like JimRising, he backs off, he takes that high ground, and he forces EnDerr to fight in a disfavorable position. Unfavorable.
Absolutely, yeah. Unfavorable is the word that I'm now remembering. And I guess if EnDerr wanted to, could try to split up his army and, you know, send one of them northeast stuff westwards and try to get us around JimRising. Their supplies are about even. But again, it just seems like he's all armying too much.
Oh my god, and just once again, like JimRising, he finds an opportunity to get into that high ground, outmaneuver, outposition his opponent, and with that, he gets a massive concave, even lands all the biles.
Biles are landing back and forth here, Light, but EnDerr, he is coming out of the ashes with that advantage. His +1 carapace is going to be finished up very, very soon as well, and that's just going to have such a domino effect. The third finally goes out for EnDerr. GG is called. JimRising Jaime Arturo Duran Silencio. EnDerr, he's El Conquistador, but Jaime, he is El Asesino, the bane of any conqueror. And with that, JimRising more than makes up for his Copa Hyperion.
Wow, wow, GG, well played, Jaime. JimRising silences his opponent, silences anyone who doubts his skill in the ZvZ matchup. And mate, he looked dominant there.
Absolutely, he didn't even have to rely on Mutus. I mean, he made him in game number 2, but that was what won him the game. Outflanks the flank master.
Yeah, that was. I just watching that series. I just loved the way that I keep wanting to say Jaime. Jim was like, he looks at the army, he looks at the situation he's in, and we see how he maneuvers back and forth, and somehow, some way, he just always looks like he's in the more dominating position, and that was great. That was beautiful.
Absolutely great. And Light, I got to tell you, in 2020 we had a lot of content creators come out. You know, Harstem started doing his stuff. Euthermal has his guides. TY started doing vlogs. JimRising didn't start this year. He started quite a bit longer than that. I think he was, for the longest time, mostly known for a streamer. But I feel like in this past year, if not only has he improved as a player, but he's just been doing so much different stuff with his stream as well. It's always a treat whenever I, somehow I'm able to wake up early enough to tune in.
Yeah, definitely. Like, it's always important to note that even though JimRising, like, he even downplays himself. He's like, yo, like, I don't expect to do that well. Like, I'm just a streamer. He was a top 4 player in WCS. Sorry, not in WCS, in EPT. Like, in the ESL Pro Tour. Like, he is legitimately up there in the Latin American scene, up there with the likes of Cham and Kellizer and Special. He has like struggled to break into that like top 3 echelon, but regardless, like, he's such a solid player. And I was talking about this with Yoda earlier today, actually. I think his biggest problem for Jim is like his self-confidence. Like, very often, like, he especially when he goes up against Cham, he looks at that, he's like, I got no chance, and he often like defeats himself before he even tries, right? Like,
indeed he does. But he's taken it to him multiple times.
Yeah, definitely, and I'm just so impressed with how he played today. Like, legitimately, like, I haven't been as impressed with him in quite some time. Maybe it's been this downtime, this off season. But I love the way that JimRising played there. And again, when it comes to Latin America, there are just so many strong Zerg players. That he gets so much practice, and it definitely showed here.
That it did. But speaking of Latin American Zerg players, like, I think we have the main course entree. What's the word I'm thinking of here? Like, the main event of the evening coming up real soon. It is, of course, going to be Cham, the #1 Mexican Zerg player. In fact, I would say for the longest time, just the #2 Latin America player in general. And then, of course, Mio Micah at the top of the #1 ladder hero for the past couple of weeks. It's been pretty consistent.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. I wasn't too sure how to organize these players, but I do feel like Mio, he's been on top of that NA ladder, and I want to see how he does here against Cham, who is considered to be a higher ranked player than JimRising.
He very much is. And with that, are we gonna go to a break? Players are doing their vetoes.
Yeah, the players are going to be doing their videos. We're going to be setting up our next casters for the final best of 5 of the night. Everyone stay tuned. Thank you so much, Yaku, for joining me. And do you have any closing words as well, for 2020 and kind of the year that we've had?
Thank God that's over. No, I mean 2020. I mean, it's not a good year overall, but I there's definitely a lot that I can look back at and think, that was good.
Yeah, I mean, 2020 was our first year where we took casting seriously. It was our first year where we were able to
Wait, I took
actually
casting
have
seriously?
yeah, as in we had like a proper weekly schedule. We were live almost every single day. Like we took on these big events like IEM Katowice, a lot of like WESG, like the IEM qualifiers, DreamHack. Like it was, I don't know, it was great what we were able to accomplish and achieve. At least that's what I think.
Yeah, I think so as well. And always going to be hopeful for the year ahead, 2021, and hopeful for 2022. As again, there was so much planned for 2020 from us, from other organizers, from ESL right at the very top that just ended up having to be dashed, but because of the whole pandemic situation. But yeah, here's staying hopeful for 2021 and 2022. More is definitely going to be on the way.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
That's my main leaving point there.
For sure. I hope we're able to cast more as well. As in, like, I know that like you're taking school, like, or school is your priority in 2021, and because of that, you may not be able to. Yeah, to cast as much, but hopefully we'll be able to like make up for that and find something for you as well to have like a more consistent event for you to cast, and you'll still be here as much as last year.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, here's hoping. But yeah. Thank you for joining me for Duckling Showdown, and we'll be back in 5 minutes with a brand new set of casters and Chan versus me and Micah.
Get hype!